Hello, everyone. I haven't recorded anything in a while. My summer ended abruptly, so this is like my third recording of this talk. I keep messing up. Anyway, I wanted to address the issue of, or a question that I keep hearing from parents. It's the middle of September. I'm seeing this on Facebook posts. I'm hearing this from parents that I've talked to in person. The question is, am I doing the right thing by educating my child at home, by me being the primary educator of my child? Or am I making a bad choice because I don't have the experience or the education to make me a professional in this field of working with a student who might have special learning needs? And that's an important question to consider, but I think there's a very good answer for that. And the short version of that answer is that you are doing the right thing by being the primary educator at home. The first reason I say that is because God gave this child to you as a gift, and you said yes to this gift, and you have a lot of love for this child that a professional out in the school system or a professional, at a university or something like that, they're not going to have the same love for your child as you do. And the other part of that is that God knew that you were the right person to be the parent of this child. And part of what marriage is for the begetting and raising of children. And in that word raising, you have not only raising them and making sure that they are physically developing the right way, but also educating them morally, academically, socially. And God has chosen you as the parent for this child, so he knows that you can do it. And that's my first vote of faith, is that since God has chosen you as the parent of this child and you have so much love for this child, that's why you're asking this question, am I doing the right thing? You are doing the right thing, and you have the abilities, and God, even if you're not necessarily educated in this area, God will give you the tools that you need, both of you, to make it through this together. So even if you're at a tough spot in your academic journey with your student, because academics are typically where you see struggles, or even socially, even if you're at a tough spot, it doesn't mean that you can't make it through. With prayer and sacrifice on your end, maybe a little bit more education of yourself, look for different programs that you can learn, you're going to be able to make it through. But just remember that God chose you. He didn't choose someone else. He chose you to be the special caretaker, person who loves this child. There goes my alarm. So that's the most important thing that I think is important to remember, is that you are the person God has chosen to be the parent and the educator of this child. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that because you love your child so much, you know your child better than anyone else is ever going to know your child. You know what kind of personality they have. They do those personality tests where there are the 4 different temperaments. You know what temperament your student has. So you can use those tools in order to figure out the best behavior management system you can put into place, in order to figure out how to motivate your student, in order to figure out, in order to work with them to get them through their difficulties. Because you know them so well, you have that capability better than any professional in the field, myself included. You know your students so well that once you figure out which tools to use, you can make it through those tools. So because you know your student so well, you know their temperament, their personality type, you have a lot of experience just in that, and that experience is invaluable. So use that experience to help your student get through the tough times that they might be going through. So that's the second thing, is that you know your student really well. Third thing is that for students, if you're considering putting your student in this school, for some families that is a good choice, but if you are hoping to keep your student at home, you don't have to make that choice necessarily. Something that I find hard to deal with when I was looking at, when I was going through my graduate studies, looking at a school model of helping students with special education needs, is that right now, at least in the public school systems, and I think oftentimes even in the private school systems, there's this idea of kind of mainstreaming and including students in the general class. And I don't think that that is a valuable direction to go, an effective direction to go, because when you have a student who has special learning needs, they might be, you know, the social butterfly and really love interacting with other kids, which is great. But oftentimes when you put students in those situations where they're a little bit different than the other students, they learn differently. They might learn a little bit slower than other students. They might have to have, you know, assistive technology to help them get through an assignment. There's that, no one might even say it to them, but I feel like there would be that self-esteem issue that might come up where the student recognizes that they're struggling more so than other students, and because of that they're less than other students, which is not the case. All students learn very differently, and a problem with our education system right now is that we ask students to learn the same way across the board. So, you know, maybe 100 years ago that may have been different. There may have been students who nowadays would have had special education needs who back then didn't need special accommodations because the curriculum was flexible or the teachers were more flexible and there wasn't a standard rigid outline for exactly how the students are supposed to learn, what they were supposed to learn, what test scores they were supposed to get, what levels they were supposed to be at. Right now our education system is very regulated, and that is, it can be good, but there are also a lot of drawbacks to that, because then you put students in boxes and they always stay in those boxes, which I don't think is healthy. That's my opinion. But when you have a student go to a school setting, sometimes it can be really good, and you can have teachers that are amazing. You can have resource room specialists that are amazing, and the resource room might be a really good outlet for your student with special learning needs, because they can go to the resource room and have a one-on-one tutor work with them. But when they're in the classroom, a lot of the lessons are designed so that they can apply to all the students, which means that your student might feel like he or she is struggling more than other students. And because of that, there might be shame or embarrassment, which I know that if I was in that position, I would feel shame if I was in a school setting and I recognized that I learned slower than some of the other kids. I know maybe that's just because I'm super competitive, but I know that I would feel like I didn't fit. And that's a very sad feeling to have for a student. So again, there might be some amazing benefits to putting your student in a school, but if you're hoping and looking to keep your student at home, just recognize that when they're at home, they're comfortable at home. They can wear their pajamas if they want to. They have your support, and even if you have multiple kids and your attention's, you know, placed in different areas at different times, and you can't devote one-on-one attention to the student 24/7, they still have your one-on-one support. They know that you love them, again going back to the first point, and there isn't that comparison with other students their own age. There might be comparison between siblings, which happens anyway in any family. And, you know, some students will learn faster than others in certain areas, which is fine. That's how we work. Each person is different. We don't fit into a mold, and we're not all the same. But they have that flexibility of being able to learn faster or slower, adapting the curriculum. That's one of the things that the schools use, is they adapt the program to the students' learning needs. But when you have 5 students who have specific learning needs in a classroom of 30 students who don't have specific learning needs, that adapted program might not be exactly what that student needs. It might be close, but it might not be exactly what that student needs. But when you can adapt programs at home, you can consult with other professionals, whether you have consultants in your homeschool program, or whether you have special education professionals. You can consult with them to figure out what your student might need. But adapting that program is something that you can do at home. So your student's comfortable at home. They're not necessarily comparing themselves as much as they might in a school setting. You can adapt the materials so that, you know, if your student's excelling in one area, let them excel in that area. Keep them going. If they're slower in another area, keep them going in that other area, but, you know, you can move at their pace. So I think there are a lot of benefits to educating a student at home. Something that a lot of moms ask just in general is, am I educated enough to teach this material to a student? And I think that all moms are educated enough. And if a mom isn't educated enough, she'll go out and she'll pick up the history book and read it alongside her student if she can, and do that. So I wouldn't doubt yourself. If you are homeschooling your student with special learning needs, I wouldn't doubt yourself, because again, the 3 points that I'd like to bring up are: 1, God knew that you were the right person to be the parent of this child because he knew that you would love them so much. And then the second point was, what was the second point? Oh, it's been a crazy first couple weeks here. The second point was that, totally drawing a blank. The third point was that your student is comfortable at home. I'm totally drawing a blank. Now I feel embarrassed. Anyway, we'll come back to that a little bit later. But what I would like to say now, kind of in closing, is that if you feel that you are not the right educator, oh, the second point, I remember it. Okay, second point was that you know your students' character, you know who they are, you know what kind of temperament they have, and you can work with that. Again, that's a huge tool in your toolbox that no one else has, because working with a student's temperament can be really difficult, especially when you're trying to implement strategies and behavior management systems and stuff like that. That's something that professionals can sometimes have a hard time with because they don't know the student as well as you do. So that was the second point. Can't believe I blanked out like that. But anyway, so God knew that you were the right person. You know your student inside and out. You know their temperament, who they are, what they like, how to motivate them, all that stuff. And you have been already exercising and practicing that since they were little, the behavior management systems and stuff like that, to motivate them. And then third, you don't necessarily have to be super qualified to work with your student. They're at home, they're comfortable. You can adapt the curriculum and program to meet their learning needs. There won't be as much comparison between them and other students who are at the same age, might not be at the same grade level. So I think there are a lot of benefits to that. Now, if you are doubting yourself and you still want to double check to see if you're making the right decision, that's not to say that you can't reach out to professionals and ask them their advice, you know, what their opinion is, what you're struggling with and what you want to see improve, and see if you guys can come up with a game plan together, because your input is invaluable to any professional, what they're going to recommend. So together, if you're feeling like you're not necessarily doing the right thing, or you want more advice on how to approach a certain subject or something like that, it's totally fine to consult a professional, and just let them know that you would like to keep homeschooling, but you want to get some input on how to move forward, basically. Another thing to keep in mind, and this might be for students who have more severe learning needs, but even for families with students who have mild learning struggles, is that there are places out there where you can get your own specialized certificates and credentials in different remediation methods, which, again, I think I've covered this before, but remediation is really key. Accommodating the curriculum is helpful, but you really want to look at what's causing this difficulty and focus on that. Okay, what's the remediation? How do we strengthen this area of the processing so that the student can perform better? So there are lots of programs out there that have remediation training sessions that you can go through. So if you feel like you're not adequate enough, even after, you know, remembering that you're the person God chose for this role, you know your student very well, you can use that for your, you know, for your benefit and for your students' benefit, and your student is comfortable at home. If you still feel like you want to do more, or you want to make sure you're doing enough, you can always go and get trained in a specialized program that focuses on remediation, depending on what your student needs, and become more educated yourself. So there's nothing holding you back from doing something like that, and then you can work directly with your student and know that you have more tools in your toolbox to really help the student succeed with their academics than you had before. So if you want to go learn and acquire more tools, that's great. I think that's an amazing route to take. So consulting a professional is always good. If you want to learn more, go ahead and look up some of those certificates that you can for remediation programs, because that's a really good way to go. Or if you wanted to do private tutoring, we work a lot with private tutoring of students. So we work one-on-one with the students to get them to the point where they have a higher achievement level and they know how to apply the tools that we worked on with them. And sometimes the parents sit in and learn how to do it alongside of us. So the parents don't necessarily have to go outside and get you know, go through a training program, a parent training program. They can just sit in and watch their students. So there are different things that you can do at home. Reading, the training programs, getting private tutoring. It can be costly, but it's an investment in your student's future, just like any of these other things. It's a time investment, and sometimes it does require a monetary investment. But again, that doesn't mean that keeping your student home is the wrong thing. You just might have to be more creative about what tools you're using, where you're doing your research, all these other things to kind of contribute to the position that you have as primary caretaker and educator of your child. And again, God chose you to be the person to be this primary caretaker and educator. So he's going to give you those tools that you need. You just have to pray for them and listen to him when he responds. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful and uplifting. It's a topic that I've seen a lot of parents asking, especially as the school year is starting and they're encountering those struggles again after you've taken the summer break. It's an important question, but I think it's a question that can be answered simply that yes, you're doing fine if you want to educate your student at home, and it may be the best option for you guys. And again, that's not to say that families who decide to send their student to a school, that's not to say that they're making the wrong choice either. But if you know in your heart and you've done the research and you've looked at all the pros and cons of both, and you really want to educate your student at home, power to you, because I think that's a great way to go. If I had a student with special learning needs, I would probably educate my student at home as well. Because, the other thing to remember, one last thing, is that if you are a Catholic, I think the most important part of education is teaching your student about God and how to become a saint. And that's something that no professional can do. And that's the most important part of a student's education, is who is God and how can we love him so that we can reach heaven. So that's just kind of the last piece of input that I'd add in there. I know we're thinking about academics, but that's something that only parents can really do, is instill in their children that seed of faith that that should blossom into a beautiful flower later on. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful, encouraging to all of you guys. Please feel free to share. Feel free to subscribe to our channel. I'm going to be creating more videos. You'll find out about my rough summer in probably a week or so, but I wanted to address this first since it's a topic that keeps coming up. So anyway, pleasure speaking to you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through the website at www.secretgardenep.com. So that's Secret Garden Educational Pathways. And again, share this video, subscribe to our channel. We're going to be making more content. If you have any topics that you want covered specifically, I'd be happy to do a talk on one of those topics. So write in, comment. If you're going to comment, just keep your comments respectful of other people. And I look forward to making the next video. God bless.